Today's episode brought to you by Conduit Clothing Company. It is finally fall in the Midwest where I live. That means cooler temperatures and my brand new Conduit Clothing hoodie. This thing is very comfortable. One of the softest pieces of clothing, let's say. It's one of the most comfortable, let's say that, pieces of clothing that I wear. And I've worn it basically all weekend as the temperatures fell here in Iowa. It's part of some of the new offerings of clothing over at conduitclothing.com, including some new options for the ladies. Be sure to check those out. And you can learn what it means to be a conduit for Christ at conduitclothing.com. Every order ships with a hardcover ESV Bible for you to give to somebody who needs it. It's the whole mission of the company, is to get a Bible into the hands of as many people as possible. Visit conduitclothing.com, check out their awesome offering of clothing, and just as a thank you for supporting the AM Update. It's Monday, October 20th, 2025. Everybody loves a good astroturfed protest. Same old, there we go again in Israel and the state of play in China, next on the AM Update. The gay retarded vaccine-injured protest went down all over the country yesterday. The so-called No Kings protest against President Trump took place in New York City, Washington, D.C., Chicago, Miami, Los Angeles, all the major cities and all cities in between yesterday. It was largely astroturfed, although it did go violent in areas like Portland, Oregon. Turned into basically a riot on Saturday evening as protesters attempted to burn down portions of that city, including near an ICE facility, Immigration and Customs Enforcement facility as well. President Trump on Sunday morning said Democrats better be careful. He could take over and invoke the Insurrection Act.
And don't forget, and I haven't used it, but don't forget, I can use the Insurrection Act. 50% of the presidents almost have used that. And that's unquestioned power. I choose not to. I'd rather do this. But I'm met constantly by fake politicians that think that, it's not like a part of the radical left movement to have safety. These cities have to be safe. Our cities that are Democrat run, exclusively just about, are unsafe cities.
There's President Trump on Fox News. Also, scuttlebutt is over the weekend. Memphis getting the federal takeover treatment. That's been ongoing for a couple of weeks. Could be San Francisco is next. Well, waking up again to news on Sunday could be the same old story, unfortunately, in Israel as they carried out several strikes on Gaza and ordered a halt to humanitarian aid after accusing Hamas of violating that U.S.-brokered ceasefire. The truce that ended months of fighting is in its second week and has seen previous accusations from both sides. An Israeli military official said Hamas attacked Israeli forces in Rafah in southern Gaza with rocket-propelled grenades and sniper fire, prompting Israel to carry out strikes in the area. Just watch this. This is all going to get blamed on Israel again. It should not be a surprise at all that Hamas is treacherous. Here is President Trump once again warning leaders in Gaza, if they don't cut it out, they could be cut out of play forever.
Is there a timeline to get Hamas to disarm, in your mind?
Not a timeline, not a hard line, but we're going to see how it all works out. They've lived there for a long time. They're very violent. As you understand, you've been covering it for a long time. But we're going to find out. Don't forget, 50,000 of them have been killed, okay? Mm-hmm. So they killed 1,200 people in the October 7th attack. It was an attack. They killed 1,200, but Israel can say that we killed 50,000, and so you'd say it's a whole new set of people, and it is. I mean, they get replaced by other people, young people, but we're going to find out. So it's not a hard timeline, but it's a line in my own mind, and at a certain point, if they don't do what they're supposed to do, then we'll have to do it for them.
Yeah, Hamas has given up all of its leverage. I'm not quite sure. Other than they're just a bloodthirsty death cult, essentially. Islamist death cult. They have I don't know what they're trying to accomplish here by trying to violate the ceasefire agreement. U.S. prosecutors have accused a Louisiana resident of participating in the October 7th attack by Hamas on Israel. Mahmoud Amin Yaqub al-Muhtadi, a 33-year-old, allegedly armed himself and joined a paramilitary group that fought alongside Hamas in the 2023 attack that saw 2,000 people killed and 251 taken as hostages. U.S. authorities say about a year after the attack, Mr. al-Muhtadi allegedly traveled to the U.S. on a fraudulent visa and became a permanent resident. He was charged with attempting to provide, or conspiring to provide material support to a foreign terrorist organization and the fraud and misuse of a visa or other documents. Al-Muhtadi was allegedly an operative of the National Resistance Brigades, the military wing of the Democratic Front for the Liberation of Palestine, according to the complaint brought by the FBI. He's accused of coordinating a group of armed fighters. So, how in the world can an immigration system get so unbelievably and seemingly at the time irrevocably damaged to the point that a literal terrorist, less than a year after providing material support and fighting alongside in one of the largest terror attacks in modern times, just gets to walk into the United States and live in Louisiana, of all places? Thank goodness, seems like immigration is coming back under control. Over the weekend, President Trump has commuted the sentence of former Representative George Santos. Trump said in a post on Truth Social, quote, "George Santos was somewhat of a rogue, but there are many rogues throughout our country that aren't forced to serve 7 years in prison. I started to think about George when the subject of Democrat Senator Richard Da Nang Dick Blumenthal came up again. As everyone remembers, Da Nang stated for almost 20 years he was a proud Vietnam veteran, having endured the worst of the war, watching the wounded and dead as he raced up the hills and down the valleys, blood streaming from his face. He was a great hero who would leak to all and any who would listen, and then it happened. He was a complete and total fraud. He never went to Vietnam, never saw Vietnam, never experienced battles there or anywhere. This is far worse than what George Santos did, and at least Santos had the courage, conviction, and intelligence to always vote Republican." So there's President Trump commuting the sentence of former Representative George Santos. George Santos, just kind of a weird guy. Probably did something that most members of Congress have done, by my understanding, misusing election funds or campaign funds. Speaking of campaigns, let's check in on Virginia. Abigail Spanberger, the Democrat, the absolute psychopath, has a 10-point lead, according to Kaplan Strategies, fairly well-respected pollster. 10-point lead on Republican Winsome Earl Sears in the Attorney General's race. Jason Miyares leading Jay Jones 45 to 44%. Of course, Jay Jones is the one with those crazy text messages wishing death on a GOP lawmaker. I don't know. I don't know why it's that close. Like I said on Friday, just absolute shame on Virginia if this guy gets elected after what he said in those text messages. All right, let's go back to the gay, retarded, vaccine-injured protests. If you want to know what the median protester looks and sounds like, it's probably like this woman who was interviewed by Frankie Scales. She's probably in her 50s, white, what have you. She's carrying a sign that looks like the Burger King logo that says, "Say no to kings." She was asked why she's in attendance at this protest.
No King's Day.
And why specifically are you out supporting No King's Day?
I think protest is important.
Why are you protesting?
How much time do you have?
A couple minutes. And what's the main reason you're out here protesting President Trump?
I don't agree with a lot of the decisions that are being made.
Is there any decision in particular you disagree with?
Okay, so I would start with, well, I don't even think it's appropriate for me to have this interview.
So there you have it. That is the median attendee of the totally not astroturfed No Kings protests from over the weekend. Well, when we come back, JD Vance addresses Marines. We'll hear from that. And the state of play in China. Heard an interesting clip the other day I want to share with you. That's all coming up next. Want to remind you today's episode brought to you with minimal interruption by Conduit Clothing Company. You know, the left has already built their own economy. You see this everywhere you go. And if we want to be serious about America first, if we want to be serious about winning this country and this culture back for Christ, we have to be serious about where we spend our money, even on things like clothing. Well, there's a company out there called Conduit Clothing Company. They've been supporting the AM update and will continue to do so for the weeks to come. Their mission is to get a Bible into the hands of as many people as possible, but that's not their only mission. Their mission is to provide some clothing, nice clothing, that you as a Christian, a Christ follower, will want to wear and wear over again. And the logo, the evocative Conduit Clothing Company logo, is sure to strike up some conversations, maybe with your unbelieving family, friends, coworkers, what have you. Crucial conversations, that's the name of the game when it comes to changing the conversation, and Conduit Clothing wants to help you do that. Strike up some of those conversations, along with wearing some really cool clothing as well. Every order ships with a hardcover ESV study Bible. Check out their catalog at conduitclothing.com, conduitclothing.com. Vice President J.D. Vance celebrated the 250th anniversary of the United States Marine Corps on Saturday at a California event that drew some pushback from Democrat Governor Gavin Newsom. When you listen to this clip, you can probably understand why.
We know that the work you do, protecting our country, putting your lives on the line to defend our way of life, is at the heart of Marine Corps service. Now, when officials try to shift focus to mandating diversity quotas, or they try to inject partisan politics into the American Armed Forces, they impede the Marine Corps' ability to do its best work. And that's why the Secretary of War and the President of the United States have stood so firmly against that crap. Because when you can't operate at your best on the battlefield, it puts everybody's lives at risk. And it's why we're recentering the focus of all of our military, including the Marine Corps, on those timeless values of discipline, readiness, and faith in one another. Now, I remember when I was a young recruit in boot camp talking about how politically correct things got maybe over the last few years, and I compare it to my time in the Marine Corps. I remember I was lining up as a young recruit to go to church one Sunday morning, and back then there were two lines. There was the Catholic line, and there was the Protestant line. And I remember we all get into our lines, and there's one recruit who's just kind of standing there by himself. And, you know, the folks watching on TV may not realize that Marines refer to themselves in the third person when they're in recruit training, because you haven't earned the title of United States Marine, and so you have to say, this recruit, instead of I. And so you've got this one recruit standing out there by himself, and the drill instructor says, hey, what the hell are you doing? And the recruit says, this recruit is an atheist. And the drill instructor says, bullshit, get in the Catholic line. That didn't work in the Biden administration, Pete. That didn't work in the Biden administration. But now we recognize that it is not our diversity that makes us stronger. It is our common purpose. It is our common mission. And it is the fact that every single person here bleeds Marine Corps green.
There's Vice President J.D. Vance at Camp Pendleton in California celebrating the 250th anniversary of the United States Marine Corps, and you can understand why that speech drew the ire of certain Democrats in the state of California, like Governor Gavin Newsom. Because the military, the U.S. military, might be one of the institutions that, if there is the political will to change in terms of the leadership, the grunts, the people doing the work, really, the vast majority of them, I have to believe, are still very capable, very smart, at least love their country. But in terms of the leadership of the U.S. military, it's one of the institutions where if there is the political will at the very top, it's something that can be changed for the better with great and rapid pace. There is Vice President J.D. Vance outlining, yet again, the true purpose of the United States military. Good on him. Well, this clip stood out to me the other day. This is from Jan Yeklik at the Epoch Times, interviewing Lee Smith about his new book, interviewing President Trump on the topic of China. And it's something that has enamored me, or really mystified me, I guess I should say. What truly is the state of play in China? Yes, the one-child policy has been disastrous for them, and they will start to reap the whirlwind where that is concerned. But are they really in a strong position long-term in China? Well, I think this clip maybe starts to unfold and illustrate just what the Chinese Communist Party is thinking and how they view President Trump. Listen to this. This is Lee Smith with Jan Yeklik from the Epoch Times.
Donald Trump wanted an end to currency manipulation. He wanted the Chinese to stop stealing American intellectual property with American companies who were in China. He wanted to stop the forced transfers of tech and a whole bunch of other things, which is just China cheating. And they said, no, we can't do that. And why? It's a communist party. So I think that during that first term, Donald Trump understood what that industrial policy was about, right? They're not in the global system to play fair. They're not in the global system because they believe in balance of powers. They believe in dominating the system. I think it's important for us to realize this. He does not trust Xi Jinping. He does not trust the Chinese Communist Party.
Well, I'm going to now read, this is the perfect moment to read the president's observation that you cataloged in your book through your interview with him. So this is what he said, and this is looking at that precise trade deal that you mentioned, right? He said, I think you have some very powerful forces in China. President Xi is a very smart and powerful man, but you have other forces that are strong. I saw it firsthand. He viewed my relationship with him and my position as president as very important. They were very embarrassed when they said this to us because this was like having a deal ready to be signed, and the deal was virtually ready to be signed, and then they withdrew it. And I believe that they had some additional forces in China that did not want to. I have no doubt in my mind, but that deal didn't happen. So this is incredibly interesting because there was this, agreement, verbal agreement from Xi, yet the deal was withdrawn, and then this sort of second highly watered down version of a deal came through.
Jan, I'm really glad you picked that out because I think it's a really important thing and really fascinating because it gives an insight into what Donald Trump not only thinks about Xi, but how Donald Trump is trying to position Xi. And look at where he is right now with the tariffs, and look at what he's talking about. I mean, the 100% tariffs. I mean, this is astonishing, right? So Donald Trump is actually fighting it, and he understands what it means. I'm certain that he understands what he's asking for is something that the Chinese Communist Party cannot do. And now, as opposed to the first term, I mean, Jan, as you describe and as others have talked about it, this regime is more fragile now than it was 8 years ago.
So there is a clip. Thank you to the Epoch Times and Jan Yeklik for interviewing Lee Smith on his new book, The China Matrix. Just what is our relationship with China? And finally, air analysis, slightly acidic, mostly necessary. Starting today and lasting for much of this week, the CCP will be engaging in what's called its, plenum or plenum. It's a meeting where they do their 5-year plan for China. Now, it's been delayed with no explanation for why it's been delayed for several months, but that is happening this week. We won't hear anything directly from China. When they do conclude their plenum, they will project a unified front, regardless of what their decision is, regardless of what they actually tell the broader world. But I think this week, coming up in the next couple of weeks, really, we're going to start to see, either directly or indirectly, how China views itself and its relationship to the rest of the world. Now, you heard Lee Smith say there that China doesn't exist to play fair. They don't exist to be a balancing power. They exist to be the power. That's how they view trade. That's how they view everything. Everything. I don't want to use pejoratives, but they kind of just devour everything in their path. That's how they view their role in the world. And it's It's no fault of the people of China necessarily. That's just the communist, that's the CCP ideology. But I do think we're going to start to see how much pragmatism is left in China. Or we are going to see in the next couple of weeks, we're going to see a very aggressive China. That maybe they view themselves as weaker than they would like to be, and so then they must project strength. If you are truly strong, you don't need to necessarily project that strength as much. But when it comes to their housing market, that collapsed in 2020, and they're starting to feel the full weight of that now. They shifted. They've always been export driven, but they really shifted after 2020 and the collapse of Evergrande. They really shifted to being an export economy, just to be able to keep the lights on, as I've heard some people say. And now they've got this plenum this week where they make their 5-year plan. And there's something else you should be watching for as well. I've seen reports, and again, reports from and about the Chinese Communist Party, you have to take with a grain of salt. But I've heard reports that Xi loyalists within their military were ousted recently. If that's true, it's possible, I don't know how likely, but it's possible that Xi himself might be in trouble. But again, these are reports about and from the CCP. You got to take those with a grain of salt. So I believe coming up very soon, we're going to start to see what China's role in the world, what they think their role in the world actually is, and the power that they possess. I think we're going to start to see that very, very soon. That's going to be it for a Monday. Back at it again tomorrow. I'm Aaron McIntyre, and this is the AM Update.